So welcome everyone and let us get started. So page down. See if I can actually get my slides to work. That is the question. All right. So our agenda for tonight, we have a lot to go over. I know this is an incredibly difficult time for our state and for our country with a lot of anti-democratic legislation and other things happening all right now. But it's really important for us to take a look back and to see what has worked so we keep continuing to grow and improve the systems that we have developed and the work that we have done over the state here for the past 11 years as you can vote and longer with a lot of our partners. Um, but one thing we do know is that our education, our registration, our training are a critical foundation and play a critical part of the North Carolina voter engagement landscape. So I'm excited to share what we have done. And by the end of the webinar, I hope that you really feel ready and motivated to take action and are empowered and informed enough to take action and feel proud of the work that you have been a part of, and we've all been a part of over the past year here in North Carolina. We'll start going over North Carolina stats, or you can vote stats at a glance, and then we'll go really into North Carolina overall, our key takeaways from North Carolina turnout, and then some key insights that we have from this cycle. And then we'll talk a little bit more about 2025 and beyond, what we're up to for this next cycle, and a take action hour, which I'm very excited to share with you some critical ways that you can help advocate for voting rights and voter registration here right now, tonight and tomorrow. And then, like I said, plenty of time for Q&A, and just put those questions in that question box, the Q&A box, and we will get to them. And Caitlin, our wonderful Caitlin Metzger, is going to be compiling messages and questions. So let's get right into You Can Vote's 2024 Impact at a Glance. We're putting together a full annual report, which will be out later this year, later this April. But I wanted to show what we have done and how proud we are of the number of program activities we held over this past cycle. So as many of you know, we have our Civics Fellows program, our Campus Voting Challenge, we've done high school workshops, and of course, a lot of community voter engagement. And it all starts out with training. And so almost 2,000 of our friends across the state, in and out of the state, got trained last year, and 230 plus partner agencies across the state downloaded our toolkit and were voting rights champions, sharing our training, our messages, our tools with their constituencies. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We recruited and mentored and trained 51 terrific North Carolina Civic Fellows across campuses. And they served on 10 different campuses in that they served this year. We were on a lot of additional campuses with staff and having fellows go to a campus that they did not necessarily attend school on. We also educated a lot of voters. We had over 181,000, almost 182,000 one-on-one conversations in front of a voter using our fridge card to educate folks on their rights, check their registration, and understand where, when, and how to vote. Really proud of those in-person conversations. People have so many questions and don't know what they don't know about voting. About 20,000 registrations were hand collected by You Can Vote ourselves. That doesn't count all of the trainings and mobilization that were done by other agencies and campuses that we trained and provided the best practices for. We attended 718 campus events, 3,700 community events, And these are the classroom presentations, 392 classroom presentations on college classes, and should be 345 tabling events on college campuses and 100 high school events. So we really focused in on our youth and our community and the habit of voting this past cycle. And I just want to give a special shout out to our civics fellows. They helped us register voters. They were ambassadors on their campus, and I think these two quotes really sum up what the fellows were saying after getting involved with You Can Vote. I like this one. Every time I help an out-of-state student register on campus, I feel like I've made a big impact. It's really motivating to know that I'm helping students like myself be educated on their voting rights and make the process easier for them. That is true. Our fellows had so many conversations in helping students just make their plan of where they were going to vote before it was too late. And our Bear 10 fellow Carlisle says that she's been able to register hundreds of eligible voters and empower many more with information. It has shown her that even one motivated person can make a big difference. And that is what we're here for. That's how we started. One person can make a huge difference. And when we all come together, we know we can have a huge impact. Our volunteers, we've talked to a lot of our volunteers and we sent them surveys and we had ongoing feedback because we always want to improve our volunteer programming. And they felt like they were doing their part to help citizens exercise their right to vote, help have a say in government processes, and that we were a positive way to approach voters and answer their questions effectively so we could get them to register. The fridge card is great and a great way to start the conversation. And I like this one. I didn't feel helpless. I was doing something to try and help our political process function. And that's what we're all going to dig into here this year and in the years to come of doing things that help empower ourselves so we can empower others. And then our amazing partners across the state. I think I see Ashley from App State on the call as well. I went out and did a training for folks and student leaders, and we had such a successful program at App State this year. A little hurricane in the mix, but our training and materials were vital for their student and staff department leaders. And between YCV and the County Board of Elections, everything they did was informed and accurate. So we really appreciate our friends at App State. And then this was the first year we did full Spanish speaking website and a full Spanish toolkit. And we provided bilingual training for El Centro and other partners. And this quote, please continue doing a great job with the tools you provide, especially having it in Spanish. Keep it up. And so we will keep it up. So that is what we are making sure that we keep doing to serve our partners and communities. Our takeaway from our direct voter services is that high schools are so great, but they're really best prior to an election, further away. Spring is a great time for high school registration. That's when you have the most eligible voters before they graduate, turning 18 and ready to register and vote soon. And ongoing pre-registration, registration, and education on the mechanics of voting and Civics 101, what's on the ballot is just really important. And we are doing such great work in our high school classrooms. We know that festivals are really effective, but closer to fall. But Pride Festival are always good to do voter education and registration. So we were going to be at every Pride Festival again this year, serving our LGBTQ friends and neighbors. We also found that it's easiest for us to onboard new volunteers at large events where we can work alongside and pair new volunteers up with the existing volunteers so that they can we have more eyes on forms and more folks who really can help increase the skills of their volunteers and co-volunteers. So training goes, we have a model where you come and you get trained, and right then we're at an event. We go do it for the first time and get feedback and help learn together. So That's kind of our summary of our takeaways of what we want to make sure everyone knows that, high schools, we got to get those done before the fall of a presidential election year. Festivals are wonderful, and new volunteers, let's get you in for the first time at a big event where you can talk to a lot of people and you have a lot of support with by your side. Now that I've gone over You Can Vote's work, a snapshot of our work in 2024, I want to bring you to the North Carolina voter turnout trends. So this is overall turnout trends for North Carolina that we have summarized, um, and this includes our work, but this is just a snapshot of North Carolina and what we have learned. So this chart is a real mess to see, and I know that, but I will explain it to you. This goes back to historical turnout from the 2008 primary, presidential primary, all the way through the 2024 general election. And you can see it's color coded. These big, tall lines in pinkish red are presidential elections. And you can see we have really high turnout and participation in North Carolina in presidential elections. Now, midterms, we've done a really great job of upping that midterm turnout number starting in 2018 above 50%. We slumped a little bit in 2022, but midterm turnout, and you can see when you have higher midterm turnout, you have a little bit higher of a presidential bump, and that's because of the habit of voting. And you can see our presidential primaries are in blue. This year was a different primary. We had you know, basically almost two incumbents kind of coming in. So I wouldn't read too much into the presidential primary turnout because the general turnout was going to be big and massive because of all the money and all of the work being done in North Carolina. And we had a good turnout in the primary of 22 that kind of leapt us up to the 73.7% turnout for the general election. Now, our municipal elections are in purple, and that's what we can expect this year is about 16% turnout in the November municipal elections. It's a different pool of voters, and it's well served for us to do work in these elections because once we get folks voting, we know we can help them vote again and again. And small changes and small amounts of turnout in a local election can have really big impacts because there are just less voters overall. So this is our overall turnout, and we like to say this is the North Carolina roller coaster of voting. It's up and it's down and it's up and it's down, and you just have to get comfortable with the ride. That and all the changes make it a very interesting roller coaster. So next, I want to go over North Carolina turnout in 2024 by age and race. And so here is where you can see that the highest percentage of voters is our white voters over 40. So white voters over 40 had 83+% turnout. The next best demographic for turnout was the Black voters over 66 with an 81% turnout. But as you can see for demographics, our white voters are turning out in higher numbers. The AAPI, the Asian American and Pacific Islander turnout was actually very, very good, especially for young voters in comparison, and it held through the middle age voters as well. So these are the turnout trends of demographics by age and race. And then here's another way to look at it by percentage of voters. So this is overall voters. And as you can see, North Carolina demographics, it is a very, very much a white state. So that is also playing into the turnout. In North Carolina compared to Georgia, I know a lot of folks after 2018, 2020 were comparing North Carolina to Georgia, and it's not an even comparison. North Carolina demographics we're about 70% white and 22% Black. 3.7% Asian and Pacific Islander, and then 11% Hispanic Latino. Georgia, on the other hand, is 58% white, 33% Black, and 11% Hispanic Latino, and 5% Asian American. Um, so we just have a vastly different makeup of voters and demographics here in North Carolina than in other states. So some of the takeaways that we found after doing our analysis is that, North Carolina is really different. National narratives do not apply because we are a battleground state and we've been at the front of, the voting rights work for a long time here. Um, Also, we have a lot of split ticket voting, which not every state has. So our behavior is a little bit different. And swing states overall behaved very, very differently than other states because there was so much work and so much investment in get out the vote and voter registration and all of the things that we know help get voters to the polls. So all that investment in swing states, it does pay off. It does increase turnout. It really works. But the non-swing states, they need help too. And then we also found that our candidate research tool, our What's on the Ballot tool that allowed students to scan a QR code in their classroom and sign up to research their candidates and have access to that when they went into the polls was so important and critical and in demand for those down ballot races. People didn't feel they had access to that information anywhere else. And while folks were even walking into voting, we were having them scan and pull up that ballot builder tool because the nonpartisan local races, like in Raleigh, they weren't on anybody's candidate guides or any of the hard copy candidate guides. So we really, we see that as such a valuable tool. It worked so well our first go around investing in it, and we will have it again for 2025 when we know that local voting information is so important because people want to feel comfortable knowing who to vote for and don't want to make a mistake, especially when elections are close. Young people, we often hear, when we talk about close elections, if they don't have all the information they need or that they feel they need, they might opt out because that might be too high a stakes that their one vote could change an election. So that we got to help them get prepared with the resources to make them confident. Now, I know in the turnout slide, we saw that North Carolina voting went down a percentage in 2024 versus 2020, but that's not really comparing apples to apples. It was more difficult to vote in 2024. Remember back in 2020, we were all home with a pandemic and there were relaxed rules. And also people didn't have much to do. Voting was top of mind all year round. And we know our campuses, some of the students weren't where they should be or were supposed to, they might have been home, not on campus. So the data from 2020 is different. And we want to acknowledge that. So with this little dip in voting in 2024, it proves that, folks still need help. And many of the students and the young people had their parents help and had help from family while they were at home. And this year, folks relied on organizations like us or on their student services department at their college or their civic engagement fellows. College students, especially, and young people and first-time voters just need that extra hands-on help to make their ballot count. We also know that voter ID was in place this year, was not in place in 2020, and there were so many questions about how to obtain a voter ID and if I needed to go to the Board of Elections and get the official voter ID. So we'll never know how many people didn't show up because of a misconception about photo ID. So that's why we can see the dip in turnout. Now, this is always one of my favorite slides because we're always educating folks that voting is a habit. And what this shows to us is this is all voters in 2024 in North Carolina. We almost reached 75% turnout for all voters. Now, if these overall all voters, if they voted in 2022 in the midterm, it was almost an 18% increase on if they voted in 2024. And if they voted in 22 and 23 local elections, you can see it's 23 points higher than all voters. And what's really stark is how this helps young people engage. So overall youth turnout in North Carolina was about 60%. And then if a young person had voted already in 2022, their turnout jumped by 26 points. And if they voted in 22 and 2023, 35-point jump on their voting habit in 2024. So we know if we can get someone voting in one election, we can get them voting in the next election. What this chart also says is that voters who voted in 22 and 23 had a 97% turnout. And I think this is actually 100%. Our data director said that those 3% that didn't turn out probably moved out of state or passed on. So it's almost guaranteed if you vote in the previous two elections, you will vote in the next election. Really teaches our habit of and mechanics of voting and where to go and how to find resources, and that it's it shouldn't be intimidating. And the takeaway is that get out the vote really works. We have so many calls to voters to help them make their voting plan, and it really matters, even in a presidential election, even when there's so many voices and so many text messages coming. People were confused and they needed help and they had legitimate questions, and we empowered you, our partners, and our volunteers to answer those questions. Now, in 2025, we're still watching a lot of things that happened in 2024. The voter ID federal case in the Fourth Circuit, we still don't have a ruling on that photo voter ID case. So that could come as early as tomorrow. We just don't know. We've been waiting for this decision since last April. We also still have an uncertified North Carolina Supreme Court race that I am sure you are all aware of. And so we are watching that very closely. And our friends at Common Cause are doing a lot of great organizing around that. There's also this new law changing the board makeup of the State Board of Elections, which is also being challenged by the governor. And so we will see and watch closely about any changes to the State Board of Elections. We're watching several concerning bills in the North Carolina General Assembly. We'll talk about one of them coming up. And there's a potential for other constitutional amendments coming up in the 2026 cycle. So these are all the things that we're going to be watching right now through the end of the year. We've got our eyes on it, and we will always keep you all posted of different actions that you can take and inform you if there are things that you can do. And another thing it's really important to understand about this moment in time on the roller coaster, the roller coaster ride, is that North Carolina voters have had 11 years of mass voter confusion and rapid changes to laws, to early voting, to absentee rules, to districts, and to election administration. So it's a difficult climate to educate voters. And it's easier just to present the accurate, updated information than to strip away a lot of the misconceptions of, news past and what was proposed or enacted or is no longer a rule. We've got to keep people up to date on the new rules and informed on what they can do to help voters understand this challenge and still participate and get involved civically. Another thing that we know to be true after 11 years of doing this is that the year following a presidential election is very, very hard to do community voter registration. Most people we see say, I just voted. I don't need anything. I don't want your help. And so those are really difficult conversations to have. So we're not doing as much. Remember earlier I said festivals are always good. And festivals are always good closer to fall. We are going to do a lot of festivals, a lot of partner work, but less community voter registration here in the first half of this year, because it's just not a salient issue for folks who just voted. Of course, high school and college registration and newly eligible registrations will still continue. And we know that issue campaigns are going to take the center stage over this year, as folks organize around all the important issues that are on their ballot. And we are here to help with folks connecting those issues to the offices on the ballot. And we will continue to refine and have a new what's on the ballot for 25 and 26 coming to you soon. And now what? I just want to make sure everyone's aware that list maintenance is a normal task following federal election years. And actually, the Board of Elections just did this. They send mailings and to folks who haven't voted in the past four election cycles, for federal election cycles. News coverage often depicts this as a purge and an attack, but it is normal administrative maintenance that is needed to keep our voter registration rolls clean. And when you think about all of the registration and the students who are moving in and out of the state and in and off campus, after 8 years of not voting at that address and attempts to reach them, it is probably time to cycle them off. If they show up to vote, they will be allowed to vote. In 2025, we have our local races in several of our counties, including Durham and Wilmington. Greensboro finally has municipal elections this year. However, not all counties will have access to the 3 ways to vote in every election in this election this year. So, and there will be changes to early voting sites. So we'll have to do a lot of education. It's difficult to educate folks on municipal elections because it's pretty technical, and you've got to bring that information directly to the voters. And of course, in 2026, we have races for sheriff, district attorney, U.S. Senate, North Carolina Supreme Court, all of the legislature, all of Congress, superior and district court judges, and local offices. So we are looking forward to preparing everyone on how to talk about all of these offices and how they impact the issues that you care about. And what to expect for our volunteers and supporters this year. We are already booking our high school voter registration programming and our Activate programming, which is curriculum. We get the students up and moving and talking, and it's an inquiry-based program that students learn from each other through active discussion and games like Vote with Your Feet and What's on the Ballot. We are going to work with college campuses in cities that have local elections this fall. We want to make sure students are making that voice heard and getting that vote habit built. We are going to be hiring civic fellows for fall and for next spring. Our Civic Fellows program is growing the next leadership cohort of North Carolina civic engagement professionals. And lots of our fellows have gone on to work at a lot of different agencies across the state. And we're really trained on having conversations with folks and bringing them into the process. So we're excited to see our fellows grow and graduate and go on to great things in helping democracy move forward. Of course, we'll be doing Get Out the Vote work, and we'll have ongoing communications with you on changes in the legislative session and new training and new rules that come up. We are ready to pivot and adapt quickly, and we have been doing this for a long time, a lot of you know, and so we are ready. We're watching things, and we will be out with new trainings and new toolkits and new messaging and thinking of new ways that we can support efforts on the ground. So this is our latest post. We finally got our local elections dates and fridge card ready. The local voter tool is on our website. The State Board of Elections just updated their local voter tool. So thank you to the State Board of Elections. And so you can see if you're voting this year. and which cities and towns have elections here. The primary is October 7th and the general is November 4th of 2025. And then, of course, everyone has an election in March and November of 2026 for those midterm elections. So we are going to be building for that. And hot off the press, fridge card, new fridge card. We did a 25-26 fridge card. So this is up to date as of February 7th. And our main message on the fridge card is, look yourself up on the local voter tool and see if you have an election this year. And then making sure folks are aware that next year's election dates are already set. And of course, getting folks to check their registration, make sure nothing has changed, learning what's on your ballot with our new What's on the Ballot tool that's going to be live here in the next few months. And, the information on the 3 different ways to vote: voting early, voting election day, voting by mail. So this is our brand new fridge card, hot off the press. It just arrived at the office today in the physical form as well, but it is available on our website. And just wanted to let y'all know that we are doing a lot of internal work on strategic learning. We are talking to all sorts of partners across the state and hearing from folks of what worked, how can we help you meet this moment. And so we are doing strategic planning and excited to really dive in and have an active strategic planning team so that we can meet this moment, continue doing what works, and growing supporters and growing partners, and being nimble in this moment. Our impact report and our new materials are going to be out soon as well, so look for that. And we'll be offering training and resources and events on campuses and at festivals. Like I said, everything, we'll have a bank of resources and tools and trainings coming this summer for y'all to get involved. And we are so appreciative of our volunteers and our supporters. We are going to keep you informed as we launch our new programs and partnership opportunities as we get through these next few months. And now, without further ado, it is time to take action. I know you've been waiting for it. We need to take action right now. First, we'll start with the federal. The SAVE Act is a bill that would require Americans to provide birth certificates, a passport, or other citizenship documents every time they register or re-register to vote. This would devastate registration and disenfranchise tens of millions of eligible Americans. So we need to contact our congressperson and tell them that the SAVE Act, that you oppose the SAVE Act and that we do not need this. So please take the federal action to oppose the SAVE Act. And then state action. This just came up at the end of last week. There was a bill filed, I think, on Friday that would ban third-party voter registration in North Carolina from using voter registration forms. I'll say it again. It would ban registration groups like You Can Vote from using actual voter registration forms. We would only be able to hand out sample forms in the field and direct people to the DMV website. Well, we know that this is not an ideal method for a lot of people. And we actually have an action alert on our blog right now. This is going to go out in the email alert tomorrow. And we are asking folks to call your state representative and members of the North Carolina Election Law Committee and the bill sponsors to tell them that this bill should not go anywhere. So let me read my notes. So if you are in Wake, Cabarrus, Forsyth, Mecklenburg, Orange, Onslow, Pender, Alamance, Guilford, or New Hanover, you have a House member on the House Election Law Committee. And so contacting them with your name and your address as a constituent can have even more of an impact. So I urge you to share the email alert when it goes out tomorrow around noon. I urge you to call and contact the House Elections Committee and your representative to let them know just how important voter registration is as an on-ramp to civic engagement in North Carolina. And local action. All politics is local. We're encouraging everyone to start attending a meeting or a committee. Pick one, pick two. Go to your county commissioner meetings, go to your local school board meetings, or go to your board of elections meetings in your county to get engaged in your local government. You can advocate for increased elections funding at your county commissioners meeting, school board, increasing voter registration opportunities, and civic engagement programs in high schools. We can definitely help with that. So would love more people sharing the need for that. And figure out how early voting is organized and elections are administrated in your county. So every North Carolina county has different schedules. So research your local county boards and pick one and get involved. We know that one voice can make a real difference at these local meetings and local level. Other ways you can help. I'm going to turn it over to Q&A. I hope that we've got a lot going on in the chat that Caitlin's going to answer for us and lift up. So other ways that you can help is sharing our education materials and resources. We always have them up to date on our website and dated, and we'll update them as soon as there are any changes. Invite your friends to get involved. Right now is not the time where we're having a lot of volunteer voter registration going on in the field. We will, but at this moment, we want folks to sign up to get on the list for when trainings are available, for when more action is available through You Can Vote. A lot of other organizations are mobilizing volunteers right now, but we will be offering our training and our mobilization here in the months to come. And then, of course, donate to support our work. It is so critical. We've heard from so many partners that, You Can Vote is the gold standard for nonpartisan voter education in North Carolina. And the State Board of Elections told us to keep what you're doing to explain voting in a simple way. And so we are encouraged to continue forward and continue providing this resource and leadership development and training and tools for the state of North Carolina. And without further ado, I am going to start taking some questions. All right. The SAVE Act. What was this question? More about the SAVE Act. Okay, so we had some questions about the SAVE Act and if it's going to pass. It already did pass the House, and it hasn't moved from there. So now is a good time to really lift this up. And you can find more information on the SAVE Act. We will include it in our email alert tomorrow as well, so that folks can follow up. And the Brennan Center for Justice is leading the charge on this and has tons of information on the SAVE Act. And we had a question about the bill to limit early voting and more potential bills. We got word that the bill to limit early voting doesn't have as much support as it doesn't have much support. So we're hoping that doesn't move forward. We definitely are watching that with some of our legal partners. And yes, it is open season at the North Carolina legislature. It's long session. So we expect a lot more bills. We expect to be playing defense to save voting rights and voter registration and access to the ballot. So we will keep you posted every week in our weekly email, and we have so many advocacy friends and partners that do this work as well. And so we're all talking together and monitoring all of this, and we'll keep you informed of actions that you can take. Yeah, nothing has passed at all. It's all just been introduced and proposed. And if it gets close to passing or being read on the floor, we've got folks watching and monitoring all of this. Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat. Caitlin has been doing such a great job of answering them. I want to say that we really appreciate you, our volunteers, our supporters, our donors, our staff, our fellows. You all play such a critical role in making this happen, and we couldn't have done it without you. And we will keep being on the front lines and on top of all of this uh, for folks. And give us your suggestions, give us your feedback. We're just really thankful to be in community with so many people who support and work to expand the right to vote. Thanks, y'all. Have a great night.